I want to make a transition that I think elaborates a little bit on this conversation about white perception and white privilege, whatever, however you want to put it. But it may seem superficial at first in light of the lives that have been lost, in light of the tragedy that dominated so much of the news this week. But I think it's another glimpse into the way the white majority sometimes views minority folks. And it starts with a series of tweets that Nicki Minaj, the rapper, I think, by the way, is tremendously talented. Nicki Minaj put out these tweets because she was not nominated for a Video Music Award. And she wrote, "If your video celebrates women with very slim bodies, you will be nominated for Vid of the Year." She was not nominated for Video of the Year. If I was a different kind of artist, Anaconda, that's her video, would be nominated for Best Choreo and Vid of the Year as well. Now, the significance is not that necessarily that Nicki Minaj made those observations, although I think they're perfectly valid. What I wanted to talk about was Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, who used to have the interview program on CNN, who has gone back to England and become an editorialist. It's his response to Nicki Minaj that I think is illustrative of the kind of mentality that in a very different way led to the tragic death of Sandra Bland. Now, obviously, this is entertainment and not life and death, but the mentality, I want you to get a glimpse of the mentality. He wrote a piece for the Daily Mail, which is perhaps not Great Britain's finest newspaper. He wrote a piece for the Daily Mail headlined, "Don't play the race or skinny cards, Ms. Minaj. You're just a stroppy little piece of work whose video wasn't as good as Taylor Swift's." Now, the whole thing is Taylor Swift, who is skinny and white, she was nominated for Video of the Year. Okay, so Piers Morgan takes great exception to Nicki Minaj mentioning that. Now, let's look at the subheadings on this. The first subheading for Piers Morgan's outrage, white outrage at Nicki Minaj, is this: "Superstar rapper Nicki Minaj once worked at a Red Lobster restaurant in the Bronx." That's the first thing we learn. Now, the headline under that: "She was fired for discourtesy to customers." Next after that: "This followed a familiar behavioral pattern. By her own admission, Minaj was fired from at least 15 jobs for similar reasons." That's a lot of jobs and a lot of discourtesy. So what really is, before we even get into the bulk of the article, Piers Morgan's point appears to be that Nicki Minaj provides poor customer service. Now, maybe she was a terrible waitress. Maybe she was rude to the customers. But you know what? She's brilliantly talented at what she does. And a lot of talented people are rude in the wrong context, especially servile contexts or serving contexts. Because since I don't think being a working person is servile, that was the wrong choice of words. But okay, so he then goes on to complain that he wanted to introduce his teenage sons to Nicki Minaj when she was on his program, America's Got Talent, and she wouldn't do it. She wanted to stay in her dressing room. This, again, in other words, Nicki Minaj did not provide adequate customer service to Piers Morgan, the white guy, when he demanded it on behalf of his privileged son. Now, he says that that Nicki Minaj, her tweets exploded like toxic firecrackers. Well, I read you the tweets. She's not happy, but she's not upset. They're not firecrackers. She's just expressing displeasure. Once again, a black woman expressing displeasure in a way that is displeasing to a white man who considers himself in a position of authority. That is the through line between Officer Encinia and Piers Morgan, in my opinion. Now, he doesn't believe that it had anything to do with Taylor Swift being preferenced or anything over Nicki Minaj. Or she says her arguments are hogwash, etc., etc., etc. And of course, he in a very gentlemanly way, I suppose, in his own mind, stands up for Taylor Swift. But he says Nicki Minaj's opinion is a cheap piece of faux outrage, deliberately designed to stir up unnecessary racial tension where it shouldn't exist. Shame on you, Ms. Minaj. This is always the end of the story. Why do you have to make this about race? Well, there's another possibility, Mr. Morgan. The other possibility is that it is about race, and that, in fact, the body type of African-American women was undesirable to the judges at the VMA. You, frankly, sir, have no way of knowing that. So weighing in on a subject of which you know nothing with an attitude of privilege, as if one of the talented artists of our time is there to serve you, is disgraceful. Shame on you, Mr. Morgan. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.